Nigeria, there are still many there. Oh. There are many. I believe that those people they said they are deep.
When you begin to hide yourself
of the business I'm doing, how to keep business, like customer business, receipts.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Adekunle. Mainly young women and girls are being trafficked to Europe and other destinations on a daily basis by land, sea and air. Drug and human traffickers are increasingly providing smuggling services to irregular migrants in order to obtain financial or material benefits from and through them. However, different nations are now enacting migrants' protocol to combat the problem. The long arm of the law recently caught up with one of these criminals, Josephine Iyamo, a Nigerian UK-based nurse, who was found guilty of using voodoo rituals to traffic 5 women to Germany for prostitution. She is the first to be prosecuted under the new British modern slavery laws. Iyamo, also known as Madam Sandra, subjected her victims to oath swearing as proof of loyalty to her and forced them to eat chicken hearts and drink blood-containing worms during initiation ceremonies. Investigators say that despite earning £14,500 as annual salary, she arranged for these women to be trafficked from Nigeria through Libya and Italy and eventually to Germany, where they are then being forced into sex slavery. NAPTIP describes the development as a good omen against trafficking. Moving on now to reports by Libyan Coast Guard officials who say that around 100 migrants are believed to have drowned off Libya's western coast after their overloaded boats capsized. The lifeless bodies of 3 babies were also recovered in the mishap. One of the 16 people who were rescued from the boat testified that the vessel had about 120 to 125 people aboard. The officials also added that they rescued an additional 300 migrants from at least 2 other migrant boats on the east of Tripoli. Now, on the program today, we shall be discussing more about human trafficking and migration problems, especially as it affects Nigeria as a country. Please stay tuned to find out more. Welcome back to the program. Like I said earlier, today we shall be examining human trafficking and migration from the Nigerian angle. My first guest is joining me all the way from Abuja. She is the Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, Julie Okadonli. Now, Julie, the issue of irregular migration seems to be on the rise. What is NAPTIP doing to check this?
The organization has embarked on a massive awareness campaign because for us here, prevention is better than cure. We realize that about 80% of those involved, victims of human trafficking, are actually ignorant, of the whole crime and the consequences of irregular migration, as it were, considering the fact that most of them are taken from the rural communities and have little or no access to the internet, so we've embarked on a massive awareness campaign involving NGOs and the media and just about the whole of society. And we're actually going to start a door-to-door campaign.
Now, you just talked about creating awareness. Is NAPTIP in partnership with any organization in particular, or what is the federal government doing in terms of collaborating or involving other agencies or relevant stakeholders, to tackle this issue?
Yes, we work with a couple of NGOs, CSOs. This business is not the federal government business alone. It involves the whole of society and the whole of government. Everyone is expected to be involved, from the local government upwards, from the CSOs, the NGOs, the media. Everyone should be involved in this. Even the media, sometimes they don't give enough attention to cases on human trafficking. For example, when we get a conviction, you don't see it on the headlines. You don't see it on the front page of the newspapers. You don't see the news carrying it as something of importance. You know, they give priority to other kinds of, you know, fake news or other news that they think are, you know, more important. So, I mean, everyone must be involved in this fight. Everyone must be involved in it.
Talking about prosecuting offenders now, has the agency been able to secure any convictions so far?
Yeah, that's just what I'm complaining about, actually. That's the problem, because when we get we secure convictions, the media hardly carries it. You know, I mean, so far we've been able to get about 341 convictions, and in the last month, that's from January till date, we're able to get almost 8 convictions. We actually got one last week. A man was convicted in Kano, you know, to 10 years in prison and imposition of a 1 million naira fine. You know, we've gotten quite a number, and we expect that the media should, you know, go to town with these reports. But I mean, they hardly report, you know, successes like this.
What have you been doing to ensure maximum security both at the airport and land borders? Are your officials on ground at various locations to ensure that offenders are apprehended and brought to book?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, right now we're still expecting to get approvals for NAPTIP officers to be stationed at the borders as well as in the airports, you know, the routes that they go through this treacherous journey. And we're hoping to get the approval because I think it will really help us. I mean, we've been able to make a couple of arrests, you know, in 1 or 2 airports. Last week or so, we arrested some officials who were trying to ferry out some victims, you know, and then we're hoping that it will help us. In January, we had joint operations. We also hope to have joint operations with endemic countries. Sometime in January, we had a joint operation with the Spanish police and the NAPTIP operatives. You've been seeing it in the news lately. It's something that was done with what we call the JBTF, the Joint Border Task Force. Joint Border Task Force comprises of the National Crime Agency of the UK, who are British mentors, and NAPTIP, EFCC officials and NDLEA officials. We actually went to Spain and rescued about 39 victims and arrested 84 of the suspects. Some of the kingpins were involved. You know, so I want to see more of these joint operations taking place, you know, in various countries that are endemic, so that we not only arrest the kingpins in Nigeria, but also arrest those kingpins in the various destination countries. And so, you know, we prosecute them side by side. I think it will go a long way if we do that, and that is exactly what we're doing.
Now, Libya remains a major departure route for irregular migrants trying to make their ways to Europe. And that's because of its proximity to the Mediterranean Sea. And many of them meet their death on that route. Now, is NAPTIP in any form of talks with the Libyan authorities to put this to a stop?
Yeah, actually, we do not have that collaboration with Libya right now, you know, considering the fact there's so much chaos going on there. But we're looking into the possibility of having that collaboration with the Libyan authorities, you know, at least those ones that are recognized for now. And then we're hoping it's going to help us in some big measure.
Edo State has largely been referred to as the hub of human trafficking in Nigeria. Now, just recently, more than half of the 400 Nigerian migrants who voluntarily returned from Libya were returned to the state, where a large number of them came from. What is the response effort like in that state?
Yeah, actually, I went with my team to pay the Oba of Benin a courtesy call, and I appealed to him and told him the difficulties our prosecutors were facing getting the victims to talk and to give information, because most of them were subjected to some oath-taking in the shrines in Edo State. And I appealed to him that despite the fact that we had called the Juju priests together, and they promised us that they are now going to be ambassadors for NAPTIP, in the sense that they will stop administering these oaths on the girls, I still wanted that commitment to be given to the Oba himself. And luckily for us, the Oba responded immediately, and a week after, he summoned all the juju priests to renounce the oaths that they are taking on these victims and not to engage in oath-taking going forward. And this has really helped us in no small way, because we're now beginning to get victims who are calling NAPTIP now to give us information, very useful information that we are using in our investigations.
It is very interesting to know that the agency is working in partnership with juju priests. Can you tell us more about this oath-taking?
Yes, that's one of the control mechanisms the traffickers use. Swearing of the oath gives them total control over the victims, because with that, the victims are scared to speak. They fear death, they fear madness, and they fear all sorts of evil things that the traffickers make them believe will happen to them if they divulge information concerning them or they attempt to escape from their custody.
The UN International Organization for Migration, IOM, has been conducting rehabilitation and training programs for returnees. Why is NAPTIP not doing any of such? Well, unfortunately, like I said before, much of what NAPTIP is doing is not being reported. I really don't know where you got your information about rehabilitation by IOM, but that is exactly what NAPTIP has been doing from inception till date. For NAPTIP, it's a total package. It's not just to bring the victims back. We follow the victims by ensuring that the traffickers are prosecuted as well. We keep them in our shelters. We have shelters, which is very, very key and very important. We keep them in the shelters. We rehabilitate them. We counsel them, we take care of their medicals. Some of them go through formal education, some of them do skill acquisition programs, and then at the end of the exercise, they are empowered to carry on, and become useful citizens in their various fields. So that is what NAPTIP has been doing and will continue to do. With the dangers and sufferings that many of these migrants are exposed to, we find that there are still cases of returnees wanting to go back. Why is that? Well, so far, the migrants that, let me first make something clear. We involve ourselves with those migrants who were victims of human trafficking. And those of them that returned so far under our NAPTIP's watch have not gone back. So I really do not know those you are referring to, but those who came back and who were in NAPTIP's shelters, counseled by NAPTIP, rehabilitated by NAPTIP, are doing very well as we speak and have not returned and have vowed not to return to Libya or to any other country for that matter. What is your own advice now for young people who are planning to travel out of the country by force through irregular means? Well, I will advise Nigerians not to embark on that journey. There's a lot going on now. Besides sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, and forced labor, there's organ harvesting going on. That is the latest dimension. And you may not have the opportunity to come back alive to tell your story. You're better off staying in Nigeria. Believe in yourself, believe in Nigeria, and you'll make it here. On a final note now, what is NAPTIP doing on its own part to discourage irregular migration? Well, the truth is that these youths need what I call a national orientation and reorientation. It's the mindset of the youths, who are in a hurry to make money and who believe that anything outside Nigeria is the best. They do not have confidence in themselves at all. Most of them have a very low self-esteem from what we've discovered. They need to have this national orientation to believe in Nigeria first of all, Nigeria first, to believe in themselves. And once this is done, and that is what we're going to be doing now with the National Orientation Agency, once this is done, I'm sure you'll begin to see something different. Thank you very much for joining me, Julie Okadonli, the DG of NAPTIP, all the way from Abuja. Thank you for having me. There's more to come on the show. Please stay with us.